Hey friends, it's Daisy. Welcome back to Stories for Kids. If this is your first time, step into our awesome world where exciting things happen. Parents, we all know how tough it is at bedtime to get our little ones to relax. Well, listening to Stories for Kids is a fantastic way to help them relax by engaging the imagination, reducing screen time, and learning a lot of fun things. For more information about Daisy French and what we're all about, check out the show notes below and head over to daisyfrench.com. New podcast stories are released every week. Why not take the 5-day challenge? I invite you to listen with your kids to any of our stories for 5 days in a row. You'll be amazed at how their imaginations are inspired, their desire for screen time decreases, and the oodles of fun they have along the way. So guys, are you ready to have some fun? Let's go! The day Pete learned that his cold suit was 100% reliable presented an incredible achievement. He was over the moon because he knew what it meant for his future. But then, as he left Perry's laboratory, where the brothers had just tested the cold suit, Pete nearly melted with a sudden realization. He could not move anywhere until he turned 18, the legal age required to live by himself. Since he was only 14, he was devastated. 4 years is an eternity to wait when you want something so bad. In this story, we learn what Pete does during these 4 long years to make good use of his time and work toward his dream. As we know, Pete has a lot of qualities that make him a very special frozen pop. He has determination, which means that he keeps trying even when something is super challenging. He has persistence, which means he keeps trying even when others doubt him. And he has confidence, which means that he believes in himself.
Oh, yeah!
Friends, with these qualities, you can accomplish anything. The second Pete stepped outside of the laboratory into the freezing Antarctic air, which he found quite exhilarating, he began scheming and planning.
What can I do during these next 4 years to make my dream come true?
As a young pop, Pete didn't yet realize that he was a visionary. Oh, what is a visionary? I'll tell you. Pete could see into his future, kind of like looking into a crystal ball. He could see things and then imagine how he wanted them to be. And this is another very powerful quality that Pete had. Visionary is kind of a grown-up word, but it doesn't matter because that's exactly what Pete was. For a 14-year-old, 4 years can feel like 40 years. But Pete was not discouraged. He envisioned his life in sunny Santa Monica, California, where there were fluffy beach waves and towering palm trees waving in the breeze. He had seen many photos and even watched TV shows about the Santa Monica lifestyle and how fun and relaxed it was. Holy brain freeze! He even referred to the city as Samo, just like the locals did, and he thought to himself,
Super sucker sticks! I definitely want to go to a cafe and hang out with my friends and sip fruity juice slushies. At some point, I want to go to the gym and get all buffed out. Maybe I'll even get invited to some special events. I can go shopping at the mall. Or maybe I'll just hang out at home and kick back. Holy poppin' peeps! I'm going to get a lot of different cold suits.
With these thoughts racing through his mind, Pete ran home, dashed into his room, and grabbed his paper and pens. Frantically, he drew, rapidly sketching designs for new cold suits. Soon, the floor was covered with sheets of paper everywhere, each one a different sketch for a different suit. Pete felt so empowered. Now it was just a matter of designing a wardrobe of cold suits with different looks and stitching them up on his mama's sewing machine.
Now I have plenty to do. and keep myself super busy during these next 4 years.
But then, his mind flooded with another staggering challenge.
How am I going to pay for all of these materials? I need to make for my new cold suits. Jumpin' jelly beans, I need money,
exclaimed Pete. If ever Pete risked a meltdown, it was precisely this moment. You see, when Pete or any of his family members felt stress, their hearts would beat really fast, thereby creating a lot of warmth. And we all know that if a frozen confection gets warm, they can melt. Pete would need fabric and lots of it. He would need all the interior engineering wires and screws that he used to create his first 2 cold suits, and he would need more tools. But Pete never got discouraged. He decided to take a break and breathe deeply so he wouldn't melt. Deep breathing is a technique that Mama Victoria taught Pete when he was but a tiny pop. She called it meditation, and meditation was a very useful practice for the Cold family since it was calming. And calm is a very good thing to be to avoid a meltdown. Pete was exhausted from the day's events, but still inspired. He felt like he deserved a little reward.
I'm going to the cafe and treating myself to a fruit cup. I want to think things through.
Pete glowed with delight as he headed out to his favorite cafe. His good friend Art, who managed the cafe, greeted him with a big, warm smile.
Hey, Pete. How are you, dude? Wow, you look so happy. What's new?
Greeted Art. Pete launched into conversation as he explained energetically to Art.
I just tested my cold suit in Perry's laboratory, and it works.
All right.
Only thing is, I just don't know how I'm going to pay for all these new cold suits I'm going to need for the big move. I need materials, I need equipment, I need tools.
Pete elaborated. Well, Art knew all about the cold suit. He also knew Perry Peanut Butter worked at the lab. The community was small and everybody knew everybody. Pete just loved that. Art listened quietly and smiled as Pete carried on, and then Art offered,
Hey, I think I can help you. How would you like to work here in the cafe?
Pete's jaw dropped as he stared at his friend with giant eyes in disbelief. He was so touched by his friend's suggestion that it took a few moments for him to process his kind and generous offer. Practically tripping over his words, Pete enthusiastically replied,
Yes, why yes, that's such a grand idea. I would love to work here. When can I start?
As Pete's friend responded,
Why don't you start tomorrow?
Pete was thrilled beyond belief. With his new job, he could save the money he needed to make his cold suits. He was so grateful and threw his arms around Art with a big bear hug. Later, back at the igloo, Pete organized all of his new sketches, pinning each one on the wall until almost the entire wall was covered. As the day came to an end and evening set in, he studied each sketch, envisioning an activity or event that might call for each individual cold suit design. Albeit the sketches weren't that great, but it didn't matter. Each one represented a little piece of his overall vision and how he imagined his life to be in the upcoming years. That was the most important thing. Lost in thought, Pete suddenly realized that it was dinner time, and at any minute, Mama Victoria would call on him to help set the dinner table. That is the exact moment when Pete got another big idea.
Maybe I could talk to Mom and Dad about paying me an allowance to do tasks and chores around the igloo. I can make even more money to pay for all of my new cold suits and the stuff I need.
Knowing their son very well, Mama Victoria and Papa Randy already expected that Pete would move away from home when he turned 18. They had accepted his dream. Still, Pete always got a bit nervous when it came to approaching his parents about his grand plan. So he gathered all his courage and planned how he would present to his parents that evening at dinner. At the table, before the family launched into conversation about the day's activities, Pete seized the moment.
Mama and Papa, I want to talk to you both about something that involves my future cold suits.
As all Pete's brothers and sisters glanced at each other and quietly thought, "Oh, that's Pete is at it again." They were all used to Pete's projects and goals. Everyone listened as Pete shyly explained.
I want to create 5 new cold suits to prepare for my move to California when I turn 18.
Before Papa Randy could respond, Pete continued, knowing that Papa would be more responsive if Pete offered something good in return for his request.
I could help with a lot of tasks and chores around the igloo. I can handle repairs with my tools, and I'm really good at cleaning. I'll eat green cakes. I can even cook. I want to help our family and free up time for both of you, Mama and Papa.
Of all his brothers and sisters, Perry Peanut Butter is the one that was the most interested in Pete's offer, since Perry also wanted to eventually move to a warm climate. The room grew still as the siblings anticipated their parents' reaction. Mama Victoria looked at her son with so much pride, and then down to her plate, waiting for Papa Randy to speak.
Maybe in exchange, I could make an allowance so that I could put it toward my future cold suits.
Pete offered with confidence.
Okay, son. I think this is a great idea. Let's start tomorrow.
Decided Papa Randy. In a split second, the entire family relaxed and their normal happy moods returned as everyone could now eat their dinner in peace. The next morning, Papa Randy handed Pete a list of tasks and small repairs to be completed around the igloo. Pete diligently finished all of them before noon. At lunch, Papa handed Pete $20. Without hesitation, Pete immediately stuffed the crisp bill into his piggy bank back in his room. During the next week, after completing his chores, he locked himself in his room with a paper and pens, spending hours upon hours sketching and resketching heaps of drawings of his future cold suits. Everything was falling into place and he was so excited. Pete spent the next 4 years working at the cafe and saving his money. He continued to do chores and tasks around the igloo while perfecting his cold suit creations in his spare time. Time flew by. Pete spent a lot of time reading books and articles about advancing his cold suits and making them work better and better. Great pineapple popsicles! He even thought about making his cold suits digital. Kind of like putting little computers inside to make them work more efficiently. But Pete thought that was a bit too advanced and decided to save that idea for later after he graduated from university. Soon enough, his 15th birthday arrived, and then the 16th. Pete's Cold Suit Couture collection was expanding. His savings account increased, as did his enthusiasm. As his 17th birthday passed, Pete's family could barely pull him out of his room when he was not working. The night before Pete's 18th birthday, Pete was searching flights to Southern California on his computer. Mama Victoria knew what to expect as she prepared for the next day's festivities in celebration of Pete's coming of age. Her son was about to become an adult. This was huge. Mama Victoria prepared a feast of epic proportion, and it included a massive fruitcake, one of Pete's favorites. The next morning, the entire family geared up for the big announcement. Mama tried to hold back her tears, for she loved her son dearly. Papa also prepared himself for Pete's big announcement, but even his eyes got a little watery. And then Pete approached the dining room where everyone had gathered.
Family, I am flying to Santa Monica, California next week with my bags and all of my cold suits. I'm going to stay in a little hotel while I find myself an apartment. I'm really going to miss you all, but I know this is the right thing for me to do. I also know that one day I will going to make cold suits for each one of you so that my family can come and visit in my new home. Just as soon as I get my new apartment in Santa Monica, I'm going to find myself a job as a junior engineer and apply to university.
The family sang happy birthday during a deeply emotional moment. As much as they knew this moment would arrive, Pete was the first of the Cold children to depart from the family igloo. What's more, Pete would be the first confection in the entire bloodline of all the Cold family ancestors to leave Antarctica. The end. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of The Adventures of Purple Pot Pete, find out more at daisyfrench.com. Pete has just achieved a major goal in pursuit of his dream, but he did it one little step at a time without getting scared. Can you be brave and tackle challenges just like him? In the next episode, we'll find out if Pete really does make it all the way to Santa Monica without melting in Pete's Big Hot Adventure. So go ahead and subscribe. You'll get notifications of the many escapades of Purple Pop Pete and more characters on the way. And don't forget to tell your friends. See you again soon.